Nobody tries to overpower the person who knows exactly how to answer. Not louder, not faster, not emotional, smarter. You've seen this happen. Someone cuts you off mid-sentence, talks over you like your words don't matter, pushes their tone higher, sharper, more aggressive, and somehow they take control of the moment. Not because they're right, but because they're willing to create chaos. Most people fall into that trap. They try to win. They try to prove. They try to explain everything. They raise their voice just to keep up. And that's exactly where they lose. Because the other person isn't trying to understand anything you're saying. They're trying to dominate the interaction. They want you emotional. They want you reactive. They want you off balance. Because the moment you react without control, you hand them the steering wheel. Now picture a different version of you. You don't rush to respond. You don't interrupt back. You don't defend every word. You stay still. You let the noise pass. Then you speak. One sentence. Short, sharp, controlled. And something uncomfortable happens. They pause. They lose their rhythm. They lose their momentum. They suddenly don't know what to say next. Not because you attacked them, but because you didn't give them what they expected. That's the shift. That's power. And most people never learn how to access it. They think power means being louder, more dominant, more forceful. But real power is restraint. Real power is precision. Real power is knowing exactly what to say and when to say it. This is not about winning arguments. This is about controlling the frame of the conversation. Because when you control the frame, you control the outcome. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't try to overpower people. They trained themselves to stay unshaken. Because the moment your emotions take over, you stop leading and start reacting. What you're about to learn are 5 smart replies. Not insults. Not aggression. But clean, controlled sentences that stop disrespect, expose manipulation, and shift power back to you. These work in real situations, at work, with family, with co-workers, and especially with people who test your limits. And one of them doesn't just stop the conflict, it flips the entire dynamic. So, stay with me, because once you start using these lines the right way, people won't talk to you the same again. If you're serious about this, comment 1. Now, let's begin. Reply 1. You don't need to get louder to take control. Some people rely on volume as a weapon. They interrupt you mid-sentence. They talk over you like your words don't matter. They push their tone higher just to dominate the space. You've seen this in meetings. You start explaining something clearly, and someone cuts in, talks faster, louder, like they're trying to drown you out. They're not trying to understand you. They're trying to overpower you. Most people react the same way. They raise their voice. They rush their words. They try to fight noise with more noise. That's exactly what the other person wants. Because the moment you match their energy, you enter their arena. And in that arena, chaos wins. So instead, you pause. You don't rush to respond. You don't interrupt back. You let them finish. You keep your posture relaxed, your face neutral, your tone steady. You give them nothing to push against. Then you say one sentence. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. No explanation. No emotion. No extra words. Just that. And watch what happens. The room shifts. People notice the contrast. One person is loud and unstable. The other is calm and in control. They lose momentum because now their volume looks like insecurity, not strength. And if they keep talking over you after that, they don't look powerful anymore. They look exposed. This is the shift most people miss. You're not trying to win the argument. You're showing that you don't need chaos to hold your ground. That's real authority. Control your tone. Control your pace. Control the room. That's how you win, without fighting. Silence your ego. Let precision speak. Reply. 2. You don't have to absorb what was never yours. Some people don't attack your ideas. They attack you. Sarcasm, mockery, little humiliations dressed up as jokes. You've seen this. A co-worker drops a cutting remark in front of others. A family member slips in a subtle insult at the table. Someone tries to shrink you just enough to feel bigger. They're not looking for a real discussion. They're looking for a reaction. They want you to blush, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong in front of everyone. Because the moment you defend, you accept the frame they created. So instead, you don't rush. You don't justify. You don't counterattack. You hold eye contact. You let the silence sit. You stay completely still. Then you say one sentence. The way you're speaking says more about you than it does about me. No anger. No sarcasm. No raised tone. Just calm clarity. And watch what happens. They hesitate. Their rhythm breaks. Because you didn't take the bait. You didn't accept the insult. You redirected it. Now the focus isn't on you anymore. It's on them. Their tone. Their behavior. Their intention. And suddenly, they're exposed. Because insults only work when they land. And they only land when you agree to carry them. You just refused. That's the shift. You didn't defend your value. You made their behavior visible. That's real control. A Stoic understands this. You can't control what someone says, but you can control what you accept. So the next time someone tries to disrespect you without saying it directly, don't fight it. Don't explain it. Reflect it. Let them hear themselves. Reply. 3. You don't argue inside a trap. Some conversations aren't real conversations. They're setups. The other person interrupts you, twists your words, raises the tone, pushes you to react faster than you think. Then, the moment you react, they flip it on you. Now, you're too emotional. Now, you're the problem. Now, you're defending something you didn't even start. You've seen this. A normal discussion suddenly turns personal. They stop addressing the topic. They start attacking your tone, your attitude, your intent. They don't want clarity. They want control. Because once you're emotional, you're easier to steer. That's the loop. And most people stay inside it. Because they think walking away means losing. That's exactly what manipulators rely on. They want you locked in. They want you reacting. They want you chasing control inside their chaos. So instead, you step out. You don't argue. You don't explain. You don't try to fix the situation. You pause. You breathe. You slow everything down. Then you say one sentence. We can talk when we can do it with respect. Not a complaint. Not a question. Not a negotiation. A condition. Clean. Final. Controlled. And watch what happens. Everything shifts. The conversation is no longer about the topic. It's about the standard required to continue. Now, they have two choices. Respect the boundary, or expose themselves. If they calm down, you just pulled them into your frame. If they keep pushing, it becomes obvious to everyone. This was never about the issue. It was about control. That's the power of this line. You didn't win the argument. You changed the structure of the interaction. A Stoic understands this. You can't control what they do, but you can control what you allow. So don't argue at the door. Decide if it opens. Reply. 4. You don't stay where respect is gone. There's a moment in every bad conversation when you realize it's no longer a conversation. They're not listening. They're not curious. They're not trying to understand you. They're trying to win. You've felt this. Someone keeps poking, keeps interrupting, keeps twisting what you say. They repeat the same point. They ignore your answers. They push you harder just to get a reaction. And you feel it building. Your patience shrinking. Your chest tightening. Your tone about to change. Most people ignore that moment. They stay. They keep talking. They hope the other person will finally understand. But that never happens. Because you don't get clarity from someone who feeds on conflict. You just get pulled deeper into it. So instead, you recognize the signal. You stop. You don't argue further. You don't explain again. You don't try to win. You look at them calmly. Then you say one sentence. I'm not going to continue this conversation. No anger. No frustration. No apology. Just a decision. And then you disengage. That's the key. You don't stay to defend it. You don't wait for permission. You don't reopen the door. You leave the exchange. And watch what happens. They lose access. They lose control. They lose the ability to pull you into their chaos. Because the one thing they needed was your participation. And you removed it. That's power. You didn't escalate. You didn't attack. You simply refused to stay. A Stoic understands this. Your attention is your currency. And every second you give it to chaos, you pay with your peace. So choose where it goes. Reply 5. You can stand your ground without starting a war. Not every conflict comes from an enemy. Sometimes it's a friend, a coworker, a family member. They may even mean well, but they push. They question your choices. They insist you see things their way. They treat disagreement like disrespect. You've felt this. A conversation that keeps circling. They repeat their point again and again, trying to wear you down until you agree. They don't want clarity. They want compliance. Most people react in two ways. They argue every detail, trying to prove they're right. Or they give in, just to end the pressure. Both cost you. One drains your energy. The other costs your identity. So instead, you stay steady. You don't debate endlessly. You don't surrender your position. You listen fully. You let them finish. You remove urgency from your response. Then you say one sentence. That's your view. I respect it, but I don't share it. Say it slowly. No tension. No sarcasm. No defensiveness. Just calm certainty. And watch what happens. They pause. Because you didn't attack them. You acknowledged their perspective without giving up your ground. Now there's nothing to fight. No insult to react to. No weakness to exploit. Just a clear boundary. That's the shift. You didn't try to win. You made your position final. A Stoic understands this. You can respect someone's right to think differently without handing them control over your mind. That's real independence. Calm, clear, unmoved. That's how you disagree, without losing yourself. Now you see the pattern. None of these replies are aggressive. None of them try to overpower anyone. But every single one of them takes control. Because control was never about volume. It was always about composure. Think about what just changed. You're no longer reacting. You're no longer chasing the last word. You're no longer trying to prove your worth in the middle of chaos. You're deciding when to speak, how to speak, and when to walk away. That's a completely different position. Let's lock them in. I don't need to raise my voice to be right. The way you're speaking says more about you than it does about me. We can talk when we can do it with respect. I'm not going to continue this conversation. That's your view. I respect it, but I don't share it. These aren't just lines. They're boundaries. Spoken clearly, delivered calmly, backed by control. And the moment you start using them, something shifts. People hesitate before interrupting you. They think twice before pushing you. They measure their tone around you. Not because you became aggressive, but because you became harder to move. That's the difference. Most people are easy to pull into emotion. You're not. And that changes everything. But remember this. The words are only half the power. The other half is how you deliver them. If you rush, you lose it. If you get emotional, you weaken it. If you try to prove something, you give it away. So slow down, stay still, say less, and mean every word. Because the person who controls their response controls the direction of the conversation. And over time, that becomes presence. That becomes authority. That becomes quiet power people can't ignore. And once people feel that, they stop testing you the same way. Not because they changed, but because you did. If you're still here and you mean it, comment 1. Stay stoic, stay strong,